Hello, welcome to the live coverage of Day 2 of the debate on the Appropriation 2018-2019 bill, being brought to you live by the National Television Network. We now take you over to the House Speaker to begin the commence the debate.
Wisdom and understanding. We thine unworthy servants here gathered together in thy name, do most humbly beseech thee to send down thy heavenly wisdom from above, to direct and guide us in all our consultations. And grant that we, having thy fear always before our eyes, and laying aside all private interests, prejudices, and partial affections, the result of all our counsel may be to the glory of thy blessed name, the maintenance of true religion and justice, the safety, honor, and happiness of the Queen, the public weal, peace and tranquility of St. Lucia, and the uniting and knitting together of the hearts of all persons and estates within the same, in true Christian love and charity, one towards another, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, and the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Ghost be with us all forevermore. Amen. Honorable members, may I remind you, when the House rose, the question in debate was that the Appropriation Bill 2018-2019 be read a second time. Honorable member for Denver North.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to make a contribution on behalf of the people of Denver North to the Appropriation Bill 2018-2019. Mr. Speaker, this morning I want to thank God for the strength, the courage, the fortitude, the patience, the tolerance, and humility to serve my country and community in a parliamentary capacity for almost 7 years. I want to also thank my loved ones for their support and understanding as it relates to the demands of my job. I also want to thank, Mr. Speaker, the many people who lift me in prayers on a daily basis. Pastor Caius Alfred of the SDA Church, Pastor Shunus Isidore, Pastor Terry John, Pastor Roger Stevens, all of whom are of the Adventist faith. Father Situt, Father Benjamin all the way in Nigeria, Deacon Popo, Pastor Senfor, and many others, Mr. Speaker, who make it their duty every day to lift me up in prayers. And it is their prayers and the support of my friends, my loved ones, and my constituents that fuel that passion, that drive me to deliver on behalf of the people of Denver North and by extension, the people of St. Lucia. Mr. Speaker, today I want to thank the people of Denver North once again for having reposed their collective confidence in my ability to champion their cause in the parliament of our country. The people of Denver North, a lion-hearted people, a proud people, a hard-working people, a loving people. The people of Grand Riviere, the people of Richford, the people of Grand Ravine, Gadet, Lapel, Larissos, Despin, Oleon, Belmont, and of course, Mr. Speaker, the community I've had the pleasure of calling home from since the day I was born up to a day like today, the beloved community of Denye Riviere, where I live, where I attended school, and where I find a place I can call a true sanctuary. Mr. Speaker, like the Prime Minister before me, I want to take the opportunity to congratulate the St. Lucia police team on winning the regional police T20 competition. And like the PM, I also want to congratulate my friend and former national teammate, Mr. Shervin Charles, for having been awarded Player of the Tournament. I also want to congratulate the young St. Lucians who gave representation to our country at the Carifta Games. The fortunes were not very favorable, but the effort at representing country is something we all must be proud of and something we must encourage. The Carifta swim team is in Jamaica as I speak, Mr. Speaker, and they too must be congratulated for going out there to put forward an effort for raising the profile or the sports profile of our country. As I speak, Mr. Speaker, sorry, there's a delegation that will be representing St. Lucia at the Commonwealth Games in Australia. They too must be spared a thought. Mr. Speaker, there is a young man who's a Form 3 student at the St. Mary's College. His name is Akim Auguste. He is the under-15 captain for Team St. Lucia, cricket team that is. In the recently concluded Windward Islands under-15 cricket championship held in St. Vincent, he registered 2 centuries, 138 against Grenada and an unbeaten 100 against Dominica. He was named the best player of the tournament, and he was rewarded by being made captain of the Windwards under-15 team. Currently, Akim is leading the Windwards team in Cricket West Indies, or what is formerly known as the WICB, West Indies Cricket Board, under-15 tournament in Jamaica. But Akim is not the only St. Lucian on the team. He's accompanied by compatriots Ryan Goodman, Skylar Faye, Amari Venner, and Stefan Theodore. Mr. Speaker, it is important that we send a very important, a very significant message to these youngsters at an early age, that what they do in the name of national representation is something that we are all very proud of. And this would go a long way in encouraging them to strive for even greater heights as they continue to discharge their responsibilities to country. Mr. Speaker, it was after having contributed to the debate on the estimates, I learned of the passing of a friend and former schoolmate, Francis Libo de Lima. He was a contemporary of mine at St. Mary's College. I think he must have been maybe a year or 2 ahead. But today, Mr. Speaker, albeit belatedly, I want to express condolences to his family, his friends, and the music fraternity. Now, I must confess and admit this morning that it was a very difficult exercise trying to decide on an approach or a posture for the debate on the appropriation bill, given all what had gone out in the media, probe, investigation, and all kinds of things were said in the mainstream media and on social media. And I had to ask myself, do I come into this honorable chamber this morning? Should I come out swinging? Should I keep my composure? Or do I stick to the real issues before us in terms of how the policies or lack thereof in the budget address would impact the hardworking, beloved, proud people of Denry North? I want to state from the outset that I will not fall into the trap where I give any semblance of credence to the government's obvious diversion tactics and strategy to spend time or waste time playing defense as it relates to any investigation involving me or any agency that I provided oversight for when I was the minister. You would have thought that in the weeks leading up to the debate on the appropriation bill, the government would have been in a position to excite the base, excite its base, excite the populace by dropping snippets of what is to come in the appropriation bill. But instead, using very craftily and strategically some of their surrogates in mainstream media and in other facets of society, they decided to talk about investigations, Jufali, minister's account, and interestingly, it has moved from national lotteries to minister's account. But I'm going to say this morning. The day you can find $1 that cannot be accounted for at the National Lotteries Authority, come and talk to me. The day you can find $1 that was not spent on youth development and sports at the National Lotteries Authority, come and talk to me. Until such time, I am allowing you to probe and investigate. Gouvernement a parlé mizi about investigation. L'année où est-ce pour ça ou ça? Pour silence nous. Empêcher nous parler. Et que là, venir qui parler about investigation, yo quoi nous quoi pas. Nous kay couiller dans un coin. Nous pas parler. Moi ka dit en créole, comme on dit ça là en anglais. Joua gouvernement flambeau, ça joine $1 that nous pas ça account for. Et nous pas ça dit ça nous fait pays national lotteries, c'est jour moi kay parler ba yo about investigation. Et joua yo ça joine $1 qui partait taper servi en les youth exports qu'on loi dit pour lotteries, c'est juste ça que je parle de. But until such time, là, the top passe droit gouvernement, ça la fait cette lycéen that nous supposé parler about Jordia. And as I said, I am in parliament for one reason. I am not here for self-praise or for any kind of praise. My presence here is to give voice to the concerns of the people of Denry North. And I've said before, people who toiled, who worked hard on the banana estates and the banana plantations to make an honest contribution, to keep the cash flow going in this country, to help build infrastructure. It is their passion, their concerns, their problems, their plight that gives credence and justification to my presence in this house. I'm not here for any battle. I'm not here to score points. I know who I am. I am satisfied with who I am. And I know the worth of Sean Edward. So, Mr. Speaker, and it was the member for Castries South who alluded to it, the Prime Minister came here on a day, Tuesday, to present the budget address. And nowhere in the budget address that was circulated do we have any pronouncement about investigation. But that is the diversion tactics. This is what will excite his base. Investigate Sebuk Zara, investigate Hile, investigate Sean, investigate Kenny. C'est cette investigation qui vous a fait payer cette liste. What about the ongoing investigations involving members of the government? If you are going to report on investigation, and if you want to call yourself a champion of good governance, talk about all investigations. Do not be selective in terms of which one you want to talk about or which one you want to play out in the public domain. And as I said, I will not be sidetracked. I am proud of the stewardship that I provided as Minister for Youth Development and Sports in this country. And the day this government can come up with evidence that $1, the equivalent of a tamarind ball, cannot be accounted for under my stewardship at the National Lotteries Authority, that is the day I will engage them. And the day they can tell you that monies at lotteries were spent on things other than youth development and sports as mandated by the Act, that is the day I will engage in conversation. So don't come and bamboozle people and divert attention away from the real issues. We have real issues in this country. And as a parliament, and I mean that objectively, all 17 of us have a responsibility to this country. It cannot be a case where when the government is going about its business, there's no role for the opposition. Anybody who does not understand the seriousness of what confronts St. Lucia today is making a grave mistake. And if you happen to be an occupant of this chamber and you don't understand it, you don't deserve your place in here. I am committed to national development. I love my country. I've represented my country in many different capacities. And it is always an honor for me to do so, Mr. Speaker. But today I find myself serving in a capacity where I understand that I must contribute objectively and meaningfully to ensuring that there is an enabling environment in this country so that the generation after persons like myself will have something to build on for the betterment of St. Lucia. That is what I believe, Mr. Speaker, and that is what I champion. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister came here on Tuesday and he presented a budget statement, the appropriation bill. And this is supposed to be a package that encapsulates all the things that the government will do within a one-year period to better the lot of the average St. Lucian. Ça c'est côté Prime Minister qui a venu dire tout ça il a fait pour faire cette ici en première place. But you know what? The Prime Minister's budget address on Tuesday evening can best be described as what in music circles we call a remix. That was a remix. But what is a remix? In a remix, the lyrics or the contents of the song is the same old thing that you'd have heard. But what gives meaning to a remix is that you change the beat. So today you have the same words in country and western, but it's very possible to hear that in reggae, with a reggae beat a year or two down the road. The words are not new. The beat changes, but the words are not new. And according to the Collins Dictionary, a remix is a new version of a piece of music which has been created by putting together the individual, instrumental, and vocal parts in a different way. That's as a noun, because that particular word can exist as a noun as well as a verb. And if you want to look at remix, the verb, it is to remix or rearrange a piece of music to make a new version of it by putting together the individual instrumental and vocal parts in a different way. What was so refreshing? What was new about the contents of the budget address? It lacked originality. It was uninspiring. It was incoherent. It was laced with evidence of cut and paste. It was unimaginative. Simply put, it was boring, Mr. Speaker. It was a very lousy attempt at remixing. What was in there? The silting of Roseau Dam. What is new about talking in this honorable chamber about the desilting of Roseau Dam? St. Jude reconstruction. The need to construct Hall of Justice. Execution of capital projects through bolt arrangements. These are things we've heard before. These have been around for some time. Island-wide Wi-Fi. GNet. New headquarters for the police. The loss of treated water through leaks in the main distribution infrastructure of Wasco, to name a few. But what is interesting to note is that very few, if any, of the aforementioned areas had their genesis in a or emanated from a cabinet room of the United Workers' Party. The majority of what I've mentioned here are initiatives that would have been started by the St. Lucia Labour Party. Nothing new. A lot of recycled stuff. The Prime Minister also alluded to the fact, or he gave the impression, that there will be no new taxes. That is a bluff. And when he said it, you should have seen the members on the other side pounding the table. Now, technically, he might be right. There are no new taxes, but here's the catch. And that is why I believe at every opportunity, government must engage the people frankly. There are times as a government, you must eyeball the populace and tell them this is the situation that confronts our country. And that everybody has a responsibility to lift St. Lucia and to push St. Lucia forward. There are situations that will call for that. But when you come, eku vini, eku ka dinu, la pani tax nef, that might be correct. Anything, Mr. Speaker, for example, someone is paying for water, $100 a month. You pay for electricity, $100 a month. You pay for telephone, $100 a month. At the end of the month, you are paying $300. But if you come the following year and you say to people, you know what? I was thinking of asking you to pay land tax. But you know what? I don't want to increase the taxes, so you're not paying for land. You'll just pay for electricity, you'll pay for water and telephone. But instead of paying $100, you pay $200 for each. So instead of paying $300 at the end of the month, you're paying $600, where the government is taking more out of the pockets of St. Lucians than what they would have gotten initially. Premier Ministre dit that la pani tax nef en budget ça là. Technically, ça le Premier Ministre dit vrai. Because si vous payez pour l'eau, vous payez pour courant et vous payez pour téléphone. Et tous les années, vous payez $100 pour chaque. L'année a fini, vous avez pour payer $300. Mais ça, il fait, il pas mettre un taxe neuf pour payer pour tech comme ça. Il quitte même toi là. Mais au Dieu, vous payez $100 pour chaque, vous payez $200 pour chaque. So là, le gouvernement qui a pris from vous, il presse 2 fois ça, il a point, même s'il n'a pas de taxe neuf. And that is the deception. And that is the thing that will escape and elude the average St. Lucian. Mr. Speaker, there are times, as I said, you have to level with the people. There are times when situations confront a country that is not necessarily the doing of the Prime Minister. Because we all have admitted that there are times when external factors may impact what happens down here. And for the first time, it was refreshing to hear. But again, it is something that an adage that has been around for a while. You campaign in poetry, and you govern in prose. In other words, ça ou ka di l'opposition voulait vote, c'est pas ça ou ka di le gouvernement. And for the first time, you heard the Prime Minister saying that St. Lucia is part of the global community, and that whatever happens, but they didn't know that, when they were in opposition. But they always chide us and make it seem as if we are the ones who have a particular posture in opposition and a different one in government. Mr. Speaker, the member for Castries East has spoken time and again about victimization and how vindictive the United Workers' Party government has been. Mr. Speaker, I have in my constituency a gentleman who had worked at the Lariso Cemetery for years. For years, Joseph Kelly, better known as Vaz. He had been employed at the cemetery for years. He has 2 differently abled children. His wife is unemployed. When the UWP came into office, they fired him. During the time that he was working at the cemetery, he approached courts to buy a little television set so his children can enjoy TV. He and his common law wife can enjoy TV like everybody else in the neighborhood. As soon as they came into office, they fired him. And shortly thereafter, where he bought his television, the company came knocking, ready to repossess. Ready to repossess. Today, he's out of a job. Friends were able to help him out to salvage the situation. But you know what is most disconcerting about that? The job was taken away from him, a man with 2 differently abled children, and given to a supporter of the UWP who's approaching his 80th birthday, who doesn't have any child to send to school. Now, I'm not against anybody working, but that should not be allowed to happen. This is wrong. This is unconscionable, and we have to stop it. When I assumed the office of Parliamentary Rep for Denrinoff, it's an experience I've shared before. We had to peruse, evaluate, examine, and review the bus transportation system for the schools. All drivers in Denrinoff whom I met on the program were retained. Non-UWP supporters, all of them, with the exception of one who had been using an SUV to transport children to Vieux Fort for months. He was not meeting his end of the contract. He had to be dismissed. And another person, because of his own stupidity, lost his contract. All other drivers of the United Workers' Party, every single one of the others, was retained. Those who had free contracts, we arranged for 2 of them to have been relinquished so that they were left with 1. Those who had 3 and 4, the same was done. As soon as they came into office in 2016, every single bus driver on the program who was perceived to be a member of or a supporter of the St. Lucia Labour Party was dismissed. More than 95%. Dismissed. Now, I will never, ever subscribe to that kind of politics. And people have said to me, I'm stupid because they don't want to party fire you. People have loans to pay. They have mortgages to service. They have children to send to school. I need to go to bed at night with a conscience that is clear. I need to be able to sleep at night well, Mr. Speaker. And I cannot see myself interfering in the lives of people, for it to come back and bite me and haunt me down the road. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister in his budget address, and one would have thought that given the paltry amount allocated to youth development and sports, there would have been more disclosure in terms of where the Prime Minister was going to get the funding for all of the projects that he mentioned and projects that were also mentioned by members on the other side. But consistent with a low capital allocation for the Ministry of Sports, the government must turn to the National Lotteries Authority to fund these projects. Sometime between 2014 and 2016, the Ministry of Sports that I presided over suffered a massive budget cut. Massive. But the programs of youth development and sports in the country had to continue. And so we turned to the National Lotteries Authority to do all the projects and all the work that we did. Today, the same lotteries for which I'm being crucified is where the money is going to come from. But it would really, really pain me and the sportsmen and women of St. Lucia to learn that the majority of the funding will be placed in the hands of a man who does not even understand the domestic issues, and for him to be receiving monies in the name of a consultancy. As I said, I'm proud of the leadership that I provided to that particular agency. And the calculated efforts geared at defaming me will not work. I give Jack his jacket when I have to, and I also give Harry his Jerry. The Prime Minister on page 24 of the budget address spoke about, well, to an extent, saying that we have too many facilities in this country, based on the report of the consultant. More than 160 sports facilities. And according to the Prime Minister, that equates to 1 facility for every 1.5 square miles. Mr. Speaker, is that another way of saying that we are going to effectively decommission some of the playing fields? Is that a subtle explanation for the number of abundant playing fields we have in the country today? Is that a justification for playing fields being an eyesore today and being in a dilapidated state today all over the island? And it does not matter whether it is a constituency represented by a member of the UWP or the St. Lucia Labour Party. And he also insinuated that we have issues with respect to maintaining playing fields. Let's give Jack his jacket and give Harry his Jerry. 2 years ago, when you assumed office, the playing fields of St. Lucia were in a more than pristine condition. The playing fields in St. Lucia had never been in a better condition than when you came in. Mr. Speaker, a hub in Deriso, Denry South and Miku. That's another cluster. Denry South is UWP. Miku North is UWP. Deriso is UWP. So this little cluster of UWP constituencies have all of a sudden become a hub. The Prime Minister also went on to say that infrastructure alone will not equate or maximize sports benefits. And that I agree with, 100%. Infrastructure alone will not cut it for us. But when the St. Lucia Labour Party came into office, we placed a lot of emphasis on revolutionizing the sports infrastructure at the community level, even before we paid much attention to the national facilities. And that is very important. You cannot have strong national teams. You cannot produce quality national players if you do not have strong programs at the community level. You must have a sports culture in the country that will encourage young persons to gravitate towards sports. And creating a sports culture means that every sector of the population must be roped in and must be brought in. So there's a place for veterans football and veterans cricket. There's a place for early childhood sports. There's a place to encourage the grandmother and the great-grandmother to come to the field to watch a grandchild or a child in creating a sports culture. But what sports can you play without proper facilities? So we embarked on a program to rehabilitate playing fields and playgrounds in every community. Those that we were not able to resurface and put infrastructure on, at least there was basic maintenance. But it pains me, and I remember in the mid-90s, as a national under-19 player, at 2 o'clock and 1 o'clock, I had to go on the field to roll the pitch if I wanted a knock ahead of the West Indies under-19 tournament. And I said to myself that I can never be a sports minister in this country and allow that to happen. And that is why, when the average school child left school, the pitch was already prepared. It was not his responsibility to try and raise funds to buy fuel to get the grass cut. These are the things that we postulated, we pushed, and we encouraged. But today, we've been told in very subtle ways that 160 or 165 playing facilities, that number is too high. And we've seen the subtle decommissioning of some facilities. The Lapel playing field in Denrinoff is abandoned. The Moncaine playing field is abandoned. All over the weekend, there was a cricket match, Monrepo under 19 versus Roselle under 19. I could not believe what I saw at the PI playing field. Totally unacceptable. And this is wrong. I said in the debate on the estimate that this is wrong. We owe the young people much better than we are serving. And this is not a matter for Labour to score points or for the UWP to score points. This is something that we have to tackle collectively and ensure that we provide proper facilities for our youngsters. And of course, sport is a meaningful avenue for which the human potential can be realized. We boast about Brian Lara, Usain Bolt, and all other athletes around the world. We are just as rich, if not a repository of talent that is much richer than what obtains in the wider Caribbean. We've demonstrated that the talent is here, but we lose our players somewhere along the way. We have to create the enabling environment. We have to put the infrastructure in place at the level of community, and we have to get the programs going. And that is why I said I agreed that infrastructure alone will not do it. But you would have thought that when the UWP came in, they were going to build on the work that we had done in terms of infrastructure development in sports. Come with the coaching programs. Come with the different community activities. On any given Sunday or Saturday, 2-3 years ago in this country, you could have gone into any community and thousands of St. Lucians were congregating at playing fields because there were programs at the community level. These days, you can only go to aqua melee and activities of this nature. There's no vibe in the country at the moment as it relates to sports. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister spoke about the creation of a school for the creative industries and one for sports. These are wonderful ideas. These are brilliant ideas. But how does that work? How is that going to work? If a child from Labrie who has shown an aptitude for sports is doing well, has been identified as an athlete with the potential to become elite, if that child resides in Labrie, am I to assume that the child will be moving to Grosile to attend the sports school in Grosile? How does it work? How does it work? Maybe we'll get an explanation from the member for Denry South who shoulders the portfolios of youth development and sports. And the same for the creative industries. What happens to a child from Moshi who can make it big in the creative industries. Is that child required to travel to Angers Secondary, which is the school that will be transformed into a creative industry center? Is that child required to travel to Angers almost every day? No explanation. But as I said, maybe the member for Dennery South will, Mr. Speaker, provide the explanation that we need in that regard. Mr. Speaker, during our time, we installed lights on 9 community facilities, 2 courts and 7 playing fields. Marsha, Larry Sus, Ancillary, Philip Maslin, Dennery. Well, the lights have been taken down at Dennery, I've been told, to make way for lighting fixtures that are of a different kind. Miku, Bellevue, and Fonse Jacques Courts, Mr. Speaker. We constructed 6 community pavilions and changing rooms. Ancillary, Canries, Larry Sus, Fonso, Marigot, Philip Maslin was rehabilitated, and in Fort Saint-Jacques, on the court that we built in Fort Saint-Jacques. Rehabilitated 12 major playing fields. Philip Maslin, Larry Sus, Marsha, Ancillary, Marigot, Bexon, Soufret, Lapel, Grand Ravine, Grand Rivière Dennery, Fonso, the Morne playing field, and we started work on the Pero playing field. The Morne playing field, yes, Fonso in the constituency of Babono. I'm certain about that. Mr. Speaker, the Morne playing field, it's more than a playing field. Every single day when you have cruise ships in the harbor, at least somewhere between 500 to 1,000 tourists drive through the college compound. You have very pristine buildings, well-manicured lawns at the OECS and the different divisions at the college. But at the heart of the compound is a jungle called the playing field. A jungle where the grass is more than 6 feet tall in some areas. And for years, that existed there. And nobody seemed concerned. Nobody did anything about it. We met with the college administration. And today, or at least when we left office, the Morne playing field had one of the best services in the country. Just recently, I drove by, and I noticed the vines were taking over the fence again. How can you have a college, your premier educational institution, and no provisions for recreation and sport? That cannot be right. We rolled out a playing field maintenance program where close to 100 St. Lucians were leaving home on a daily basis to go and look after the sporting facilities of our country. That is what we did. And we supported elite and emerging athletes. We created a sports scholarship desk. And I always, as minister, tried to underscore that important nexus between sports and the academics. You cannot be a talented sportsman in 2018, 2019, and just rely on your talent alone. That's not enough. We have to encourage the development of the athletic ability and the students' academic performance and what they do in the classroom. Today, I'm proud of the fact that Yasmin Saint-Ange from the community of Grosili, who was the captain of the St. Lucia ladies team, cricket, has graduated with a bachelor's degree from the KVL campus, supported by the St. Lucia National Lotteries Authority. Larry Edward, the latest St. Lucian to play first-class cricket. Larry got accepted at KVL. He had played for St. Lucia and the Windward Islands, but he wanted to further his education. And we were committed to ensuring that Larry's cricket would not have suffered as a result of a desire to go to university. We funded the bulk of his tuition and living expenses in Barbados through the National Lotteries Authority. Today, Larry is a permanent fixture on the Windward senior cricket team, and he has graduated with a bachelor's degree. Dwight Thomas, Dalton Polius, Bronte Beth, Marlene Preville, and several others received assistance through the National Lotteries Authority. You know why? Because some of them, Mr. Speaker, they cannot get employment in St. Lucia. They cannot. The job market cannot absorb them. So they get a little break to play league cricket in the UK. And there, they're killing two birds with one stone. Although the environmentalists don't like that analogy anymore. They don't want us to kill the birds. They get to play cricket where they're refining their skills on a continuous basis, and they also get a form of employment, coming back home at the end of the season with a decent amount to look after themselves and their families. And they used to come to us with proper documentation to ask that we provide some assistance, at least a plane ticket. And we did that for 4.5 years. When Dalton Polius, a man who has played under 15 cricket for St. Lucia and the Windward Islands, a man who has played, a young man, under 19 cricket for St. Lucia and the Windward Islands, a man who has played senior cricket for St. Lucia and the Windward Islands, is asking the government of the United Workers' Party for a plane ticket. Just pay a ticket for him. He'll take care of himself in England. He was rejected by the UWP government and told that the lotteries cannot pay that for him. Are we serious about youth development and sports in this country? We can't pay a plane ticket for Dalton Polius, but we can give one corporate entity $24 million in the form of a tax break. And I've told you the Kimani story. I was shocked to wake up one morning to see a particular talk show host with an account number on screen asking people to go and contribute monies for Kimani Melius. Now, whether the government took care of Kimani subsequent to that, it should never have gotten to that level, because we knew early enough that the young man was going to be on the West Indies team to travel to New Zealand for the Youth World Cup. But you know what? They're punishing people. Where are the priorities of the government? We funded community programs in a number of constituencies. Competitions were held in all the constituencies. And as I said, there was a buzz in the country as it relates to sports. We procured hundreds of thousands of dollars of equipment distributed to schools, clubs, and national teams. But I don't know how the current minister feels about it. And you don't have to be a minister for sport to feel about it. But there's nothing that pains me more than when I go to the Beausejour cricket facility for inter-secondary school track and field to see girls and boys digging their toes into the grass, barefooted. They can't afford a track shoe. And what some schools do, you give the school 3 or 4 pairs of track shoes, and they vary the sizes, so that after this girl runs 100 meters with this pair of track shoes, they take it from her to give to a boy to run the 1,500 meters. We are tempted to put track shoes on the feet of the student athletes in our school system. But I'm being investigated for that. I'm being investigated for that. And if that is what you're going to investigate me for, you have to investigate me for the rest of my life. You have to investigate me for the rest of my life. And I will say again, the day you can find a dollar that cannot be accounted for the National Lotteries Authority is the day I will talk to you about investigation. The day you can find a dollar that was not spent on youth development and sports, I will talk to you about investigation. But are we really serious about young people in this country? We instituted, Mr. Speaker, a school sports award, where at the end of the sporting year for schools, we had a special awards away from the national awards to pay, to give recognition to the student athletes who would have excelled. Sports scholarship desk. There are several solutions, and I heard the member for Soufrière mention a couple from his constituency, and I need to congratulate them, and I hope more from his constituency and other constituencies will get that break. But a number of solutions who came, some we had to source the scholarships for, and those who were able to get scholarships outside the formal arrangement of the government, we assisted, whether by way of a plane ticket or we had to absorb some of the expenses for them. And during that period, as I said, not only was there a buzz in the country, St. Lucia won 9 regional championships. 9 championships in the year 2014. That was the most since 1987. That was the most, and in 1 year, we had 9. And under my ministerial watch, we had 24. And that prompted a song. In 87, St. Lucia was the champion. Somebody wrote a song about that. And that is the path we were on for youth development and sports. We were able to strengthen our working relationship with the media. Again, going back to the creation of that sports culture, you must have slots in mainstream media for the coverage of sports. Mr. Speaker, youth development and sports is a very important area. But the government needs to stop paying lip service and deliver to the young people of this country. Mr. Speaker, I noticed there was nothing said in the budget per se about agriculture. But these days, agriculture has become synonymous with bananas. You say agriculture, and you're basically saying bananas. You say bananas, and you're basically saying agriculture. My position on agriculture and banana cultivation in this country is clear. Very consistent, very clear. Anything done to support farmers, I am for it. But I suspect the farmers are being taken for a ride. Because, and it is a point that I picked up from the member for Beaufort North during his presentation, during the debate on the estimates, you cannot increase tonnage and production if you don't have a plan to fight black sigatoka. It is impossible. And I have a particular constituent. He has 20 acres under cultivation. And the 20 acres are spread over 3 farms. He comes to me and he says to me, almost broken, that he has been disqualified. She asked him, what do you mean by that? He said to me that he's having a tremendous amount of difficulty controlling black sigatoka. And there's a particular geographic portion of my constituency, which you know very well, Mr. Speaker. That main stretch that we refer to as the Mambrou stretch. That section leading to La Pelle all the way down to Lime. If you really want to have an appreciation of what black sigatoka is doing, every farmer in that general area has been disqualified. And if you want to have an appreciation of that problem, you need to go up on the hill by Danza, Lime, to see how black sigatoka is wreaking havoc with the farms, in that particular area. Mr. Speaker, I want to urge the government to handle or to tackle that black sigatoka problem once and for all. Let us be a little more proactive where that is concerned. Whereas I understand that you want to increase tonnage and you want to export more bananas, let us, Mr. Speaker, tackle the black sigatoka so as to give our farmers a breathing space. The contribution of bananas to our development is well documented, and I don't want to go through this again. The Prime Minister also spoke about roads and bridges. Mrs. Speaker, how much time do I have? Half an hour left, right?
About 16 minutes.
16?
Yes.
Thank you. Roads and culverts. The Prime Minister made reference to that in his budget address. But I have a question here. Whereas the Prime Minister was eloquently telling the nation about the proposed reconstruction of the cul-de-sac and Wavin-Prasson Bridge, I have one question. Who signed the agreement in Trinidad and Tobago with the Japanese through the JICA program for the reconstruction of the Wavin-Prasson and cul-de-sac bridges? The member for Grosile mentioned all the roads in his constituency were being attended to and how his 150 tax on the gas was working for him. In every constituency island-wide, we are paying the 152, Mr. Speaker. And whereas I've expressed my gratitude for the Oleon Road, and I sincerely want to say thank you on behalf of the constituency and Oleon, I'm hoping that the 150 being paid by Master White and Trevor Wells and Kerry and all the other persons from La Pelle, they will be in a position to say that their 150 is working for them as well. Mr. Speaker, the Richford Ring Road needs attention. And like the people of La Pelle, Makakwe, c'est Jean Wifon, you can pay 150 duties en les gas pour tout le monde, et yo tout, ka jwen chime yo tape adresse. Healthcare is a sore point, and it is something that everybody in here has alluded to. And there seems to be a collective admission that we need to do more as a country, as a parliament, as responsible citizens for healthcare in this country. But Mr. Speaker, today, the Larissus Health Center is still out of commission. And I see the elderly folk walking the highway from Richford into the inner communities of the valley. A health center that had been in existence long before I was born, which serves the main catchment areas of the constituency. When we left office, there was an allocation of $271,000 for the rehabilitation and refurbishment of the Larissos Health Center that was destroyed by fire. Gouvernement Leba quitté plus que $271,000 pour un Health Center à Larissos. Gouvernement ça la vini yo tié. Et un jour qu'aujourd'hui, moi passe à dire Jordan Renoff, Jean Larissos, ou Lyon, Belmont, etc. d'autres places là qui jouent yo kay joindre Health Center. I also spoke about the closure of the Dennery Hospital at midnight. I'm hoping very sincerely that the government will look into that. The catchment area for the Dennery Hospital is too wide. People from Monrepo, Lombard, Poilin, all the way to Tamazo go to the Dennery Hospital for services after hours. And if you happen to have a problem at 12:15, you either find a bus on private hire or a friend to give you a ride to go to Vieux-Fort at St. Jude, or you have to cross the Badlil and go to Victoria Hospital. We have too many trained doctors and healthcare professionals in this country for that to be allowed to continue. And I'm hoping, Mr. Speaker, that the Dennery Hospital will soon from today be in a position to provide 24-hour services to the people of the Dennery Basin and environs. The Prime Minister in his budget address mentioned the Dennery Polyclinic. And again, it is a project being claimed by the United Workers' Party. Who presided over the site clearance in 2015? Where was the United Workers' Party in 2015? Were you in government in 2015? Site clearance had been done. A number of returning walls had been constructed. Today you come and you claim that project. We've heard a lot said about St. Jude's, and I'm sure the members on this side who represent the southern constituencies will have a lot to say about St. Jude's. The member or members opposite said that there were no plans for St. Jude's. But somebody is either forgetting or somebody is misrepresenting the situation. Because I have heard the former Minister of Health in the UWP administration come out and publicly state that there were plans approved by the UWP cabinet, and that is why reconstruction started under them. But today, Mr. Mondesi is saying one thing, and the government is at variance with what he's saying. So who really is speaking the truth as it relates to St. Jude's? But whether it is the government or Mr. Mondesi, the most important thing in this situation is that the people from the south need a proper facility where they can get health care. Mr. Speaker, a lot was said about the police in terms of equipment. Any amount spent to make the work of the police better and to make the police more comfortable, something that will get the support of the member for Dennery North. The police are amongst the most hardworking people in this country. The police are too important to this country for them not to get what they deserve. And if what was articulated in the budget address by way of resources for the police comes through, I'll be very happy for them. The police are not responsible for crime. The police are not responsible for crime in this country. The police have a responsibility to solve crime. But if we don't have the proper social programs in place, where from early we can teach our children right from wrong, the crime situation will continue, it will be exacerbated, it will get worse, and all of us will pay for it one day. So don't make it seem, because I've heard pronouncements in certain circles, where people are trying to make it seem as if it is the commissioner and the high command of the police force that are responsible for crime. That is not true. The people in the high command of the police force, they work hard, but they are dealing, and they have to be the ones, given the structure of our system, to deal with the failures of the system in other areas. Mr. Speaker, I want to turn my attention to sustainable development and energy. The Prime Minister spoke about sustainable development and energy. And to the best of my recollection, our Prime Minister is the lead Prime Minister in that area in the quasi-CARICOM cabinet. Today, we hear how committed our government is to sustainable development and energy. When the United Workers' Party government came in, St. Lucia had the best plans, the best programs as it relates to sustainable development in the entire Caribbean. The Minister for Sustainable Development was not just providing leadership on the national and domestic front, but we had become a regional and an international pioneer in that field, in the person of Dr. James Fletcher. Significant background work went into securing an investment for a wind farm in Dennery, an investment that would have benefited my constituents, both in terms of providing employment and also, Mr. Speaker, helping deal with some of the energy issues we have. Several sites were considered and suitable tests were conducted both by Lucilec and a German technical cooperation agency, GIZ. While two other sites had better wind profiles, there were serious land use conflicts that prevented them from being used. The investor, Wintex, approached the government after having done its own preliminary work to identify a suitable site and hold discussions with the landowners. Following extensive discussions with Lucilec and the government, the decision was made by the investor to proceed with the investment. A test tower was constructed to collect wind data for 1 year. The business model for Lucilec and Wintex, who were going to be the primary owners of the wind farm, with the government, of course, all that work, Mr. Speaker, went down the drain. The investor, after becoming very disappointed with the tardy approach of the government, decided that it was time for him to go. What would have happened, Mr. Speaker? The wind farm would have generated electricity equivalent to 11% of Lucilec's total annual sales. 11%, that wind farm in Dennery. We lost that. It would have generated enough electricity to power 19,475 homes annually. The wind farm would have reduced the amount of diesel fuel purchased by Lucilec annually by almost 2 million gallons. It would have resulted in an injection of over $100 million in direct investment. If the government had continued the work we started, the wind farm would have been fully operational by September of last year. And then we come here and we talk about being sensitive to sustainable development. The street lighting project, Mr. Speaker.
Remember, you have 5 minutes left to conclude your.
The street lighting project, Mr. Speaker. The government of St. Lucia pays Lucilec $11 million for street lights every year. The lights you see, c'est light là où where Kalime tous les osware. Nous ka payer Lucilec comme gouvernement $11 million tous les années. This is because our street lamps use high pressure sodium bulbs, which use up quite a bit of electricity. There are over 21,000 street lamps on island. And so, prior to the meeting office, the CDB gave a commitment that we would have got to cause the government to get LED lights that would have helped save energy on the street lights. And there are a number of other initiatives that we piloted, which we started. Very few of them retained, Mr. Speaker, and today this is the situation that confronts us. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, I want to say that I am a proud member of the St. Lucia Labour Party. I am comfortable serving under the leadership of the member for Castries East. I have absolutely no difficulty with the stewardship that he provides. And I heard somebody on the other side try to make it seem as if there was a leadership struggle. There is no leadership struggle in the St. Lucia Labour Party. We are united with our leader. We are going to be the voice of the opposition. We are going to oppose constructively when we have to. We will call a spade when we have to. We will say what has to be said on behalf of the marginalized and the poor of this country. We will ask for the reinstatement of the distress fund because we understand the plight of ordinary people. Mr. Speaker, I want to once again take the opportunity to thank the people of Dennery North and to let them know that it is their confidence in me that drives me. It is the confidence that they place in me that would cause me to rise against the odds. A lot has been thrown at me in very recent times. I know who I am. I know who I am. I'm the product of a single-parent household. My mother worked as a laborer for more than 2 decades at the Cardiff fuel station, weeding and doing what laborers do. I emerged out of that to get a secondary education, a university education. I served many community-based organizations in many different capacities. I was able to provide leadership in a number of areas at a very tender age in my community, and that is why, overwhelmingly, they place their confidence in me to take it to the next level. That is why I'm here today. I know where I'm from. I know where I'm at. Attempts to break my resolve will fail miserably. I will not cower. I will not run. And I will never be silenced by any scare tactics employed by this government. And I will say in closing, when you are able to get $1 that cannot be accounted for at the National Lotteries Authority, I will speak to you about investigation. When you can find $1 that was not spent on the realm of youth and sports, I will talk to you about investigation. In the meantime, we have work to do as an opposition. I have work to do as an MP. I am going to speak to every member in government as it relates to programs and resources for my constituency. Some have demonstrated more maturity than others. They return calls, they respond to your letters. Others don't have the decency to even acknowledge your letters. But you're creating a new St. Lucia. Some of you learned the hard way. You can be very comfortable in the seat of government today, and in no time, you can find yourself on the other side. I have no misgivings about where I'm at today. The people have spoken, and I respect the wishes of the people. But I have a responsibility to country and community, and that I will always do to the best of my ability. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for your indulgence. I want to thank colleagues for their indulgence. And I want to wish honorable members a very peaceful day. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister in the Ministry of Finance, Economic Growth, Job Creation, External Affairs and Public Service, and member for Castro Central.
Yes, I think I am. Mr. Speaker, thank you for giving me the opportunity to add my voice to the debate. Mr. Speaker, we are still in the Easter season, and I take this opportunity to wish you a happy and blessed Easter, and indeed to wish all members likewise. In the Easter season, Mr. Speaker, we celebrate the risen Christ, who has risen indeed. Alleluia. The Christ who uses the foolish things of the world to confound the wise, the weak to shame the strong. He rose this year on April Fool's Day. But who were the fools on this occasion? Those who thought he wouldn't rise. He indeed made fools of them. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to celebrate that risen Christ today and to join all Christians in St. Lucia and worldwide in doing that, as we are still in the Easter season. Mr. Speaker, I wish to support unequivocally the appropriation bill as presented by the Honorable Prime Minister. And I want to thank him as the leader of this country and of this government for creating the enabling environment where we can build resilience for a better future tomorrow. And as I rise to do that, I must always remember what brought me here in the first place, the process, and the constituents of Castries Central, who again repose their confidence in me. I have to say what a pleasure and an honor it is for me to continue to serve them. And I thank them for their patience, and I have reason to do that, because for the past 8 weeks, I stand corrected, for the past 6 weeks, my constituency office has been closed because we've been remodeling so that we can serve our constituents better. And I wish to assure them that within the next 2 weeks, we will be reopened. And prior to our reopening, I want to take the opportunity to share what I've been working on with Team Central to deal with the vexing issue of unemployment in our constituency. And so I would like to just spend the first part of my presentation presenting as quickly as I can, because I know the time is against me and runs very quickly, the Synergy program, and that is the framework, the structure within which we will address our priority for this financial year, and it is jobs. I said in my New Year's address that I thought that with the myriad of things that which we are challenged with in Castries Central, that I thought that jobs, housing, and crime were the 3 main priorities, and that this financial year we would be dealing with the issue of jobs. So, Mr. Speaker, our team has come up with the Synergy program, the Synergy project rather, which is it's called Synergy Personal Development Training and Recruitment Program, which will be the framework through which we address jobs, training, and education for our people in Castries Central. And that will run as an 18-month pilot program, after which it will be properly evaluated and the necessary improvements and changes will be made. And if other constituents or the communities wish to also run this model, we are very happy to share what we have learned with them. So the Synergy program focuses a lot on personal development, because we recognize that people can only give what they are and who they are. So many young persons, I think the Social and Economic Review referred to 38% unemployment among young people. There are many people who are looking for jobs, who are job ready and cannot find work. There are many people looking for jobs who are not job ready, but they don't know it. And there are many people who need to be skilled in order to be job ready. And so we recognize that personal development is very important. So at the heart of this program is this project is a program called Synergy Pathway, and that, that will develop a personal development program which each person in our constituency, each client that comes through our doors will be required to enroll in. There was a book I came across accidentally and read. It is called Vices and Virtues. It's a book by a Catholic priest, and when I read it, I thought, that book certainly speaks to me. We don't like to think that we have vices. None of us likes to think that we have vices. But we all have vices. And for every challenge or human weakness that we face, there is a positive character trait that we can develop to deal with it. And we call it virtues. So when I found that book and I shared it with some of my team and they read it, they too felt it spoke to them. So we went and sought the Catholic priest, a Mexican, who wrote the book. And we invited him to collaborate with us to develop a training manual that would correspond with that book. And we won't call it Vices and Virtues, not to worry. We will call it something else because we recognize it is important to present this program in a secular way so that it can appeal to everyone who would wish to follow it. So we are working very closely with the Mexican government. They've pledged the support to help us develop this program. And the personal development program is an opportunity for each person to develop his own personal development plan, his or her, and to journey through it at their pace. This is at the heart of the Synergy program, following that personal development program, which will help each one of us to know, accept, and improve ourselves. I just want to move quickly on to the job opportunities that we have carved out, we have identified as projects that we want to pilot. The first one is called Become, and it is to help residents, electors in Castries Central, make their talent flourish. We know that not everybody is academically inclined. We know that there are so many young people on the block who can read, who can write, who can draw, who can paint, who are good with their hands, who can rap, who can sing. And the idea is that you follow our personal development program. That is mandatory. You have access to any of our programs. You can enroll in as many as you like, and one of them is Become. As I speak now, actually, the Synergy program is sponsoring an art workshop, an actors workshop, that is being held now at Palm Haven. I believe we have about 52 young people enrolled. And Errol Fabian, you would know him, he's the one who is one of those running this workshop. And we have supported the drama group to run this workshop. So these are the kinds of things that we will be doing to ensure that we help people in Castries Central make their talent flourish, but also market that talent so that they can find employment using their God-given gifts. So that's Become. We also have developed a Great Gardeners program. And I have to say, Mr. Speaker, that one of the inspirations for this whole Synergy program, or the way the idea came about, was that we thought we get an allocation for the stimulus, and we use it to cut grass. And for the 2 weeks, whether it's before the summer program to help parents find money to go back to school, persons are involved in cutting grass, or whether it's before Easter or before Christmas. And they work for 1 week or 2 weeks, and sometimes before they even draw the money, it's already spent. And we thought if we're going to cut grass, we might as well cut grass with class. So the idea behind the Great Gardeners program is that we will invite all those people who like to do landscaping, because there's nothing wrong with cutting grass, but it's certainly better to do it with a plan in mind, with structure. So we've identified a number of potential green spaces in the constituency, which we will transform into model parks and green spaces, where after we've trained those gardeners, they can become great gardeners, can beautify the sidewalks, but can also beautify those green spaces and create long-term, ongoing employment. Those green spaces will also act as recreational areas and as well help keep the place clean. And one of the areas that will form our first green space will be that portion of land that's opposite Francis and Francis at Montudon. If you've ever driven up there, Mr. Speaker, there is always, it's not an official rubbish dump, but it's always filled with garbage, and it's a consistent problem that the residents complain about because of the rodents, vermin, and dogs that are there. So government has moved to acquire that portion of land, and that will become the first green space that we will do with our great gardeners. And we have identified, we've walked through the communities and spoke with the residents, and we hope to have a very properly manicured green space in every community in Cashew Central. I have to say that I was a little late this morning, Mr. Speaker, because we met with the Sandals team this morning, all 4 managers of Sandals, and they're very excited about helping us to train those gardeners. Because what will happen is, after we train the gardeners and they're managing those green spaces throughout the year, we will be running through Synergy, and I'll come to that later, a job facilitation agency. So all those great gardeners who've been trained very well by the best people will be able to market their skills through our job facilitation agency, so people know where they can find a great gardener. A great gardener who's not just good at the gardening skill, but because he or she is following our personal development program, that gardener knows that when he goes to someone's house, he's not walking bareback or smoking or using foul language, but he's presenting himself because he is becoming a better person. So that's the Great Gardeners program. That's one of the job creation and facilitation opportunities that we are offering in this program. I just want to move to Joy Homemakers. That's another program that we have developed, and that is to train the home helper, the domestic worker, the homemaker, so that most times it's women, but it doesn't have to be, so that the homemaker can do her job with joy, with professionalism, and perfect the work that she wants to do. And we're hoping again to engage Sandals in helping us develop a program, because you know they do the hospitality very well, that's tweaked towards the homemaker. So that is another one of our programs. And Mr. Speaker, we are focusing quite a bit on manual labor because we know that a lot of our people are unskilled, but we also want to make the point of the importance and the dignity of manual work. Sometimes manual work is tended to be looked down upon for the people who are unschooled and unlettered, the people who perhaps can't do better. But in fact, there are so many or very many people who enjoy manual work. And since manual work is so essential, it's important for us to perfect it. Indeed, all of the other work that we do is hinged upon someone doing very good manual work. If my helper didn't get home this morning on time, I would have been even much later than I was today. So this is really important for us, raising the dignity and profile of manual work, helping persons who do this work to do it to the best of their ability, helping them develop themselves, and also we will be doing as well a job facilitation agency so that persons who need a helper can come to our website or call us, and we can assist the homemaker to get that job. Of course, she will manage her own contracts. We're just a clearinghouse, a training agency and a clearinghouse for them. And of course, we will be doing other training programs that will help them manage their businesses, etc., etc. I just want to move very quickly to Urban Grow. I'm sure you've heard about this one, Mr. Speaker, because I have mentioned it here. And the theme of this program is growing communities and food. All these programs we've developed from scratch, so it's taken us some time to conceptualize them, to think of the best way we can market them, to think of exactly how they would fit in with the needs of our community. So Urban Grow is helping persons in our community grow food. I don't need to say much about this here because I think it's been in the media recently. We've registered 25 persons already on the program, in addition to growing food within their communities and finding spaces where we grow community gardens. We've identified, with the help of the residents, places where we can do community gardens in most communities. And what we were very encouraged and pleasantly surprised by was that persons are already doing these things. It's not that we're coming to ask them to grow food. In every community, there were people already doing it, you know, in an ad hoc way, and they're happy to begin to work with us so that we can get more people, young people, children involved in the after-school program, growing food. That's very exciting, Mr. Speaker, and certainly sometimes I think that after God made Adam and Eve, he placed them in the Garden of Eden to cultivate and care for it. And certainly gardening is something that is very, I mean, it's not just essential work that we have to do, but it's something that brings us very close to God and very close to nature. I mean, it is actually one of my own hobbies, which I enjoy very much. So we've cleared the land at Roseau. I just want to thank the Minister of Agriculture, the PS and the Minister and the staff of the ministry. I mean, so welcomed this project, and they've been working very closely with us to do this. I think we're now testing the soil to ensure that we know exactly what we will grow, and we're setting up a meeting now with the engineers and all the necessary people at the Ministry of Agriculture so we can ensure that we plan well and we execute well. That is as much as I want to say for the Urban Grow program. If we can just move to these are the programs that we have developed ourselves, in addition to having these opportunities that we can guide persons who come to look for employment to. We will be working with the private sector, the Chamber of Commerce, to advertise jobs that are out there within the community and indeed in the country, and help persons who come to us prepare CVs, again with their personal development program, to become more job ready. We will work with them, we'll coach them so that we can have the best opportunity of reducing employment and underemployment. I just want to go to show a little bit of the other resources that we will offer, because we do want this to be sort of like a one-stop shop. So we will be teaching basic social skills that sometimes you think people should have, but many of us don't have, and we need to keep on learning. I have to say as an aside though, that with the personal development program, every single person, starting with me, will be working on that personal development plan. And our team members would have to be following their plans very well to be one step ahead at all times. So we'll be teaching people, for example, how to polish your shoes. That'll be part of the personal development program. How to shake hands, how to introduce yourself, how to set an informal table, even at home. All of these things contribute to an increased quality of life. So I have to say this is a developing website and a developing program. We'll be launching sometime in May, and by that time we would have conceptualized everything fully and have the structure all in order. So that's just an example. Also on our website and in our program, if you can see there's an education tab. We know that some persons are at work, but really what they want to do is to go to school or have further opportunities for training. So we will be listing all of the scholarships that are available within the education system. We'll be keeping in touch with the Ministry of Education and all of the other agencies or the friendly governments that offer scholarships, and that will be also listed on our site. And hopefully we will keep up and be able to post them as quickly as possible, and persons will be able to go on there and access whatever application forms they need. And they will also be able to send their MP an email so that they let their MP know that they've applied for a scholarship so that the MP can follow up to see how best she can assist. Now you might ask, Mr. Speaker, why would people want to do that? I mean, why would persons, sometimes it's hard just to get out of bed, far less decide to work on a personal development plan. We thought that there would be a need for incentives. By the way, all of this is free. It's a pilot that's going to be running Castle Central for 18 months, and it will be eligible only for persons who are resident or who are electors in Castle Central, because we have to do the pilot within a defined frame. Otherwise, we won't learn what we need to learn from it. So in terms of rewards, once persons sign up for the for our program, they receive a certain number of rewards. I don't know if it's 1,000, but we are deciding that. And what do they do with their rewards? Well, with the rewards, persons can earn studio recording time. So we keep a note of how well you do with your personal development program. And you go at your pace. I mean, we're not rushing you. You are deciding for yourself what you want to work on. But depending on the progress that you make, and your personal development coach is going to help you with that, you can use your reward to get lightly used clothing or new clothing. We have actually reconfigured our office, so we actually have a closet looking like that. It's as big as this. And we will work with the commercial houses. We will work with well-meaning St. Lucians to make sure we have lightly used clothing that has been nicely dry cleaned, so persons can get clothing to go to work based on the points they've earned. Also, we will have arts and crafts supplies. As you follow your personal development program, you will be able to get arts and crafts supplies you need to help develop your talent. Persons will also be able to rent tools and equipment. So all those great gardeners that we're training who may not be able to buy tools and equipment, once they follow their personal development program, they can rent the tools and equipment they need to go out and do the jobs. People will also be able to earn studio recording time. We are collaborating with a very good person who has a recording studio, and studio recording time will also be available. We are thinking of adding other things that people can earn. For example, personal grooming, a voucher to go to a barber, to go to a hairdresser, all of that to improve self-esteem, to help persons work on the inside so that they can be more job ready. So this is what we've been working on over the past few weeks, and we'll be rolling out very soon. So I just want to thank the residents of Central Castries who've been very, very patient as we've had to close our office to remodel to be able to offer services. Mr. Speaker, when I sit in my constituency office, if I see 40 people, 35 are coming for a job-related issue. If it's not specifically asking for a job, it's saying, I need to buy medication and I don't have money. That's still job-related because I don't have the money to buy it. So the idea is when you come down to the office or if you sign on, we will be able to provide you with a service and help you. And even for the personal development program, we will be liaising, for example, with persons who do intervention work in drug addiction and maybe other forms of addiction. So whatever help you need, we will be able to guide you to it. And we don't intend to necessarily do this training ourselves. We will collaborate with NSDC, we'll collaborate with the other agencies that are doing such good work in providing the training, directing people to the right place, and guiding them to make sure they're making progress. Mr. Speaker, this is open to everyone in the constituency. Persons as young as 6 can do the personal development program. Of course, if you're under 16, you will have to get the written consent of your parents, but it's meant for everybody. Mr. Speaker, I just want to mention in terms of the constituency that we've also done quite a bit of work in terms of sidewalk rehabilitation, retaining walls, footpaths. We've touched nearly every area in the constituency in the last 3 months, bringing relief to people and improving the quality of life on the ground. I want to say to my constituents that I continue to receive the many requests, the many pictures, the many emails people send indicating that they need work done in the area. We are keeping all of these in a data bank. We are visiting, we are costing, and as monies become available, we will make sure that we make our rounds and prioritize in the best way we can. We cannot, sorry, Mr. Speaker, we cannot do everything at the same time. It is impossible. And everything is a priority. But then there are priorities within priorities. It has to be. Because we do not have the money to do everything. But Mr. Speaker, what we are aiming to do is to use the little we have to do as much as we can. And that is why for us, setting up the structure, setting up the framework to really deal with the unemployment issue was critical. That is why it is critical, and that's why we have taken time to address it in this way. There are lots of other needs in the constituency. The river at the back of Grass Street has not been desilted for almost 2 years. And that work really needs to be done. So I am hoping that in the allocation that has been given to the Ministry of Infrastructure, we can say in Castries Central near Grass Street, King works for me. We would like to have that river desilted. And it is important that persons from within the community, within the constituency, get work when work is done in the community. There's a lot of work that has happened in Castries Central, and my people in Castries Central have not gotten work. I don't care on which side of the fence they come. The important thing is people take objection, and I understand it, when work is being done in their community and outsiders come to do the work. It is not fair. And certainly, I would like to see in Castries Central, even if we need experts and technicians to come in to guide or to have the contract, we should employ the people within the community to do the work. And I would like to see more of that happen in Castries Central. But I know I can depend on my colleague and friend, the honorable member for Castries North, to make sure that happens. Mr. Speaker, as I walk around the constituency, a number of communities have spoken about the lack of after-school programs. So with the new allocation or with the additional provision that has been made, I am hoping that we can see after-school programs in Bois Patat, specifically, and in Grass Street. We have a community center at Bois Patat, and it is sad to see that the community center has been there for a while. Windows are broken, railings are broken, and it is hardly being used, or it is being underutilized to a very great extent. I've had short meetings there with the community, and we are looking to see how we can begin to start at least an after-school program there for the residents. It is very important that children are occupied after school. Mr. Speaker, I just want to move very quickly to some issues of foreign policy that were raised by the leader of the opposition. I regret that he is not here at the moment. But on matters of foreign policy, Mr. Speaker, I think that one should be very careful, very delicate, very diplomatic in dealing with issues, and certainly one should make sure that before he or she speaks, that he does the necessary research and that what he or she says is accurate. Because you're talking, in matters of foreign policy, you're talking about friends, diplomatic friends, that you have to be, as in all friendships, we have to be very careful and nurture. More so when we're dealing with friendly governments who have given us so much, who continue to give so much, and it is so important to continue to nurture relationships as well as build new ones. I want to thank our friends in the international community for the way they've supported us in big and small endeavors. And certainly in addition to the areas the Prime Minister pointed out where we're getting assistance in this budget, I have a whole list here which I do not have the time to go through, and for fear of mentioning some without mentioning others, I will not go through the list. But there are a myriad of many small projects and technical assistance that we receive from friendly countries day in, day out. All day we are negotiating, all day we are finalizing, and we are making sure throughout the length and breadth of this country that we benefit from the relations with our friends. But it's a two-way process. We're not just there to take from our friends. We are there to share true friendships and to support them when we can, while not compromising our own principles. That's important. Because foreign policy does not come from outside. Foreign policy should be guided by national policy. Our foreign policy should be guided by our national policy, who we are, what our aspirations are as a people. Foreign policy changes with foreign governments changing. If our foreign policy is guided by foreign governments, it would mean our foreign policy can be wishy-washy and change anytime there is elections overseas. What the United States government supports today, it may not support tomorrow. Our foreign policy must be guided by who we are as a people and where we wish to go, bearing in mind, of course, that we operate in a global environment. So I'm talking about delicate matters. The leader of the opposition, I believe, he mentioned something to the effect of us not supporting Cuba or supporting the call for the embargo to be lifted on Cuba. Did I hear him say that? The leader of the opposition must understand that when he speaks, he said something in that regard. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Something to the effect that, a statement to the effect that this government did not support or did not call for the embargo to be lifted on Cuba. He said that. And the honorable member needs to understand that when he makes this statement, it can affect St. Lucia as a whole. We must not play cheap politics with delicate matters. And he must understand, too, that our friends are listening. Are listening to what goes on, not just in St. Lucia, but around the world. And our friends, the friendly countries that we have diplomatic relations with, listen, not just listen, but they listen carefully and report back to their capitals. Their decisions are based on what we say in this honorable house. So we must be accurate, we must not play cheap politics, and we must understand we should put St. Lucia first. So I want to refer the honorable leader of the opposition to the two statements that the honorable Prime Minister has made since he was elected as the Prime Minister of this country at the UN General Assembly on September 24th, 2016 and September 22nd, 2017. And in both of these statements, we have stated very clearly our support for Cuba, and we have called for the lifting of the embargo on Cuba. So it is irresponsible. It is irresponsible for the leader of the opposition to come in here and make that statement. We value our friendship with the Cuban people. We take our relationships very seriously. We think about our foreign policy very carefully. We do not just wake up and do things willy-nilly. We think of the implications, we understand the issues at hand, we think of the implications, and we act accordingly. Similarly, I heard the leader of the opposition try to suggest, I'm paraphrasing what he said, but he made some insinuations as though we didn't value, or we were not nurturing or tending well our relationships with Venezuela. This is far from the truth. This is far from the truth. Just 2 or 3 weeks ago, I returned from Venezuela. I attended the ACS meeting in Venezuela, and I have to thank publicly the Venezuelan people for their warm hospitality and their continued friendship and all the work that they do here in St. Lucia. Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, apologies. The one thing that our diplomatic friends value is true friendship and honesty. This is what diplomacy is based on. People want to be able to trust you. People want to be able to know that they can depend on you. People want to know that you are consistent. You don't have to do what they want. They want to understand where you're going with your foreign policy and that you are consistent, and they want to know what they can expect from you. And if you're clear about where you're going, you can take the lead on certain matters when you have to, even though you have to make a difficult decision. And that is what we have done on the Venezuelan issue. And that is why we have been able to take the lead and sign the Lima Declaration on the Venezuelan issue. So is the leader of the opposition telling me that he has no regard for the rule of law? Is he telling me that he's not concerned about the humanitarian situation in Venezuela? Is he telling me, or is he telling us that he has no problem when opposition leaders are jailed in Venezuela because they have voiced opposition to the government? As a leader of the opposition in this country, is he telling me that? That does not matter to him or to the opposition? Is he saying that? Is he really saying that, Mr. Speaker? There are some principles that are so fundamental, so clear, such as respect for human rights, respect for the rule of law, respect and the safeguarding of the principles of democracy, that we should be able to tell our friends that we will stand and protect these principles and have no fear of losing friendships. And that is what the government of St. Lucia has done by leading the way and signing the Lima Declaration with regard to the situation in Venezuela. What is the problem that the leader of the opposition has with that? I would like to know. The leader of the opposition went so far as to suggest that on the vote in the General Assembly, on the decision by the U.S. government to move its embassy to Jerusalem, that we were ducking. Ducking? We don't duck. That was not a vote on a substantive issue. We are very clear as to where we stand on the issue of Palestine and Israel. Mr. Speaker, it is clear that we support a two-state solution. In fact, our vote at the United Nations, since we've been here, on the right of the Palestinian people to self-determination has been consistent. Has been consistent. We voted yes as we have always voted, and we're clear about that. So I would like to tell the leader of the opposition that he needs to be very careful. Foreign policy calls for accuracy, it calls for diplomacy, and most of all, it calls for vision. So if you have no vision, if you don't know where you are going, you will look to others, including those from outside, to tell you where to go. This government had to, after being in office for 15 years, not consecutively, of course, in its last term, the former government, I beg your pardon, those now on the opposite side, appointed a vision commission. I could not believe it. That was when I knew they were going out. Because to tell me you're in office, you don't have a vision, you are so lacking vision, you've got to appoint a vision commission to find you a vision? When I saw that, I said, well, you know, there's a saying called Balfini. At that point, I knew Balfini. They were going out. But I think we've dealt with that vision commission, right? We dealt with that vision commission appropriately.
Do we have a report, Minister?
Because, no, they never gave a report, in fact. Because, I mean, you can't go looking for a vision.
They never finished the job.
You must have one. It comes from within. But you know why they never had the vision? Because they lost their soul. A soulless government is a visionless government. They turned on the weakest in St. Lucia. They turned on the poor children, the unborn children. Let's not forget about that. You turn on the weakest in St. Lucia. You turn on the most defenseless in St. Lucia, and you lose your soul in the process. And that's why you became visionless. Right? So we took our vision to the people. The people embraced that vision. It became a national vision. They put us in, and we're rolling out our vision. Mr. Speaker, I just want to turn to some important social issues that need addressing. Now, Mr. Speaker, you will recall that I was the Minister of Health in 1997 under the Labour Party government. And when I contested elections in 1997, I mean, honestly, I was like a duck that just jumped into water and started to swim. There's nothing that can prepare you for this work except to start to do it. I mean, you can study political science, but I recall, in fact, the first person I defeated in Castle Central may have been a lecturer in political science. So you can study political science, but politics is about doing it on the ground, getting out there and doing it. This is the school, just doing it. So when I went to the Ministry of Health, certainly that was, at the time, used to call Jugbois, used to call Victoria Hospital, Vant Vie Famla. And every night, or every other
remember
night,
you have 15 minutes.
Oh, time does go by very quickly, Mr. Speaker. So I'll press on quickly. And every night, it was an assault. In those days, the Accident and Emergency Department, 95%, I remember the HERA report said that 95% of the complaints that came from Victoria Hospital came from the Accident and Emergency Department. We brought in the consultant Lisa Charles, we revamped that. The complaints went down. Remember, we raised $250,000 for Golden Hope Hospital. We raised the profile of mental health. I'm saying that to say, I've been at the Ministry of Health, and I believe I understand the issues facing the health sector in St. Lucia. And I have not said very much, if anything at all, on the St. Jude's matter. Because, of course, we're dealing with a lot of structural issues regarding the building, and I have allowed the Minister for Economic Development and indeed the Minister for Health in the Senate to talk about it. But from 1997, and I understand even before my time, when perhaps the member for Castries North was Minister for Health, we've been talking about health insurance. I recall that when I went in 1997, we started a health sector reform. And the reports on health insurance were already there from before. And how long ago is that? It's more than 20 years. So I do not understand how the other side is saying to the government, let's put a team together to review again.
That's all they're good for.
It's time to implement. It's time to implement. I asked the member for Castries Southeast and Minister for Economic Development to just share with me very briefly some of the structural issues at St. Jude and why is it that we can't open. But mind you, they were in office for 5 years and they couldn't open St. Jude. I understand that when they got into office, it was more than 50% completed. 5 years in office and they couldn't open St. Jude. And now they're crying foul. But what I find is astounding. It's 5 years when the Minister of Finance, the Prime Minister, is the parliamentary representative for Viewford South. And he could not deliver St. Jude's to his own people. That is what I cannot understand. That is what I cannot understand. So the Minister for Economic Development has just, literally as I stood, the Minister for Economic Development has handed me a whole set of papers, which I have not even had the opportunity to read, listing all of the things that are not some. Listing all of the issues, the structural issues, which makes it impossible for this building to operate as a hospital. Even though it was opened, it would not qualify as a hospital. That's the point. That's the point. The building cannot function as a hospital. It cannot. The oxygen generator has to be relocated because a volatile gas storage space should be stored 50 feet from areas occupied by non-ambulatory patients. You're talking about a whole set of structural issues that do not comply with the current building codes for hospital. It's disqualified as a hospital. That's the point. And that is a great travesty. It is a great travesty. Because when we speak here, we often speak of the building. But I think of the patients, the people who are not well, the people who've gone there to become well, the people who are getting infections from the stadium itself, infections that they didn't go with, they're coming out with, or they're getting. I couldn't believe it. A very reliable source told me a patient found a tick on her bed. What? Found a tick on her bed at the St. Jude Hostel Stadium. If I found a tick on my bed at a hostel, I would discharge myself. Because if there's one tick, there are so many more. This is what people are going through in Vieux-Fort South today. Because there was a prime minister, minister of finance, in charge of the public purse,
Couldn't get it done.
who could not do better for his constituents.
Today he's gonna pick up.
And now it will shame him, I suspect. Not if, but when we deliver what he. But that is not the greatest travesty. That is not the greatest travesty when it comes to St. Jude or health there. You know what the greatest travesty is? That we do not have health insurance. That is the greatest travesty. Because if we open OKU, we do what we have to do for St. Jude, provide the best facility, and people cannot access and cannot pay. That is the travesty. And it's time to implement national health insurance. It's time to implement it. It's time we had a business-like approach to this.
That's right. Good.
And I want to thank the Honorable Prime Minister for bringing that business-like approach. So when we open OKU and we have a CT scan, people will not be feeling that they're even far removed from a right that they are supposed to enjoy. It's not a favor we're granting them.
That's correct. It's a human right. It's a human right. Listen,
So we're talking about health insurance that can provide a basic basket of services, a basic basket of services that every St. Lucian will enjoy as of right, regardless of social circumstances. Mr. Speaker, if I may be guided by you, sir, as to how much time I may have left? Thank
5
you.
minutes.
5 minutes. I've got to go really fast. I want to say how pleased I am, again, that in this budget we have taken children seriously by increasing the number of family case workers. I had a lot to say on this, Mr. Speaker. I had a lot to say on this. But let's just say, from my understanding, the last time there was an increase in the number of family case workers, it was in 2013 by 1. And I got from the department what family case workers are expected to do. And I have to say that with this budget, we've increased the number of family case workers. That's a start. But there's a lot more. There's a lot more we need to do to ensure that we get in a place where we can act before the crisis begins, particularly with regard to our children. I am going to wind down, Mr. Speaker. I promised a constituent of mine that I would do something, and it would be remiss of me if I didn't do it. Because on the last occasion, when we discussed the estimates, I spoke about building human infrastructure. And you've had an opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to see what we've planned in our Synergy program and how we've placed a lot of emphasis on personal development. I want to go back to the incident that happened on the Mendo Phillip Park, where a constituent of mine was put out of the Mendo Phillip Park. The constituent has asked that I follow this matter up, and it is important. I have the Minister of Education has assured that she's looking into this, but I do want to read the letter the constituent sent me I think it is important that it be made a document of this Honorable House, because at some point I suspect the House may need to address it. It is important that we protect our children, and there are some things in our country that are wrong. There is a direction in which our country is going when it comes to public morals and standards that even if we do not agree on what adults should be exposed to, we should agree on a common practice when it comes to children. I would like to read from Mr. Aaron Alexander, a letter he sent to me on Thursday, 8th March 2018. And if you would kindly indulge me, Mr. Speaker, I will, if it is so required, give this to the sergeant afterwards to make copies. Dear Madam Sarah, my name is Aaron Alexander, and my daughter attends the Ave Maria Infant School. On Thursday, as stated in the date above, the school held a sports meet at the Mindo Phillip Park in Marchand. As a father, I went to support my daughter and cheer on the young, promising athletes. After being there for about half an hour, I was alarmed by the provocative and almost vulgar music being played over the sound system. I asked some nearby teachers whether this was the norm, and they said yes, it happens sometimes. And some parents said to me they even play a song called Split in the Middle. I wasn't having any of this, so I went to find the principal and to speak with the DJ. Well, the DJ wasted no time in calling me ignorant and said I should just go. He continued playing the Ting on Fire, Creamy Girls, Mate Pumwe Vini, that means bend over so I can come, Bad in Bum Bum, etc. It is important, Mr. Speaker, that I translate the Creole for you. Indeed, the standing orders require that I translate the Creole into English. I started blowing a whistle, which I had in my pocket in an effort to disturb the music being played. Then a lady who was sitting away from the DJ approached me when she realized what was going on. I said, okay, here is the principal. I apologized for my outburst, and then I asked her, why is this kind of music being played at such an event? To my face, she said she has no problem with the music because the children are exposed to worse at home and on the radio. I couldn't believe my ears. She then asked me to leave because I am disturbing her sports meet, and so she asked another teacher to call the police. The police came and grabbed me by the arm. I continued my protest, and at that point, the principal said to me, then take your daughter and leave. I rejected that, and so the police threw me out the gate and asked me to stay out. Feeling helpless, I decided to call the radio station Newspring to expose this unacceptable situation. It is my fervent hope that something can and will be done to stop this vulgar music being played at school events. There must be some code of conduct because these are still school events, even though it is not taking place on the school grounds. As our parliamentary representative for the constituency, which the school is part, we look to you for guidance and leadership on the way forward with us. Sincerely, concerned parent, Aaron Alexander. I'll leave this here. I know my time is running out, and certainly this is only the account of Mr. Alexander. This is only the account of Mr. Alexander, and the school and the Ministry of Education has promised to look into this. So it would not be fair for me to say any more. But since it is a matter of public importance, a matter and something which occurred in the public's eye and which was reported through a newsprint program, I thought it would be important to give the honorable members full text of my constituent's account. And it remains his account and may not necessarily represent the full facts of what happened. But, Mr. Speaker, in the meantime, I am awaiting the full report from the Ministry of Education, because indeed my constituents is anxious to have this matter reviewed in some way. With this, Mr. Speaker, I have to say that the time went rather quickly, but I have to respect the 1 hour that's been allotted to me. I want to say that I unequivocally support the appropriation bill as presented by the Honorable Prime Minister. I want to thank my cabinet colleagues for all the support that they've given me, both as the Member of Parliament and the Minister for External Affairs. And I have to thank my family. My husband is home with my children. For this year, I've probably seen them for 4 or 5 days. And I couldn't do this work there without their understanding and support. So I thank God that He has given me the grace even to be able to do that, to be so far away from loved ones. But I am encouraged because I know that the work we do, all of us, not just those of us on this side, but the work we do as members of Parliament and as politicians certainly is indeed a sacrifice, but a sacrifice well worth it. So I do thank you sincerely and deeply, Mr. Speaker, for indulging me.
Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I rise and stand in order 32-6.
Honorable Member for Denry South, please. Go ahead,
I
sir.
rise and stand in order 42-6, the matter which I was misunderstood on relating to Cuba. Here's what I said. I said, a St. Lucia Labour Party government would strengthen ties with our CARICOM neighbors, including Cuba, and we called for the removal of the trade embargo on Cuba. I never said that this government did not recognize Cuba. I'll repeat what I said again. I said, a St. Lucia Labour Party government would strengthen ties with our CARICOM neighbors, including Cuba, and we call for the removal of the trade embargo on Cuba. So I'd like the honourable member to either clarify it or withdraw it. I never said so. Thank you.
Honorable Member Castries Central.
Mr. Speaker, I would be happy to indulge you, Honourable Member, but only if we can prove that that is what he says is in fact what he said. So I would be asking for a transcript of exactly what was said in this Honourable House so that I may review it. And of course, if I have misrepresented or misquoted the Honourable Member in any way, I would be more than happy to withdraw. So my request is for a full transcript of what the Honourable Member said yesterday.
And Mr. Speaker, I would really like if you make it available, because I am very sure that's what I said.
Very well, honorable members. Honorable Mem, I'm giving him full time. Minister in the Ministry of Equity, Social Justice, Empowerment, Youth Development, Sports, Culture, and Local Government, and member for Denry South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to lend my 2 cents in support of this 2018-2019 budget policy debate. I'm doing that right at the start, Mr. Speaker, knowing that we are only allotted 1 hour. And there is so much that has to be said today, Mr. Speaker. I don't want at the end that I forget to lend my support. But Mr. Speaker, I do this today also through humility and with commitment in the service of community and country. It is also, Mr. Speaker, with a sense of duty, honor, and the privilege afforded to me by the wonderful people of Dennery South to fulfill the responsibility of my ministerial portfolio for youth development and sports, that I echo sentiments of the government's plans and programs to advance the business and cause of youth development. And also, Mr. Speaker, for the advancement of the communities of Limay, Delaide, La Caille, La Pointe, Bois-Joli, Bolobel, Tualo, White Rock, Dennery Village, Hospital Road, Ascanout, Rocky Lane, Green Mountain, Mr. Speaker. And I know that the pronouncement made on the village tourism, Mr. Speaker, will help us in Dennery South so that we can achieve our objectives in becoming the town that we aspire to be. Mr. Speaker, before I proceed into the fundamental aspects of my presentation this morning, I would like to recognize the efforts of our athletes who are in the Gold Coast in Australia at the Commonwealth Games. Track and field, Mr. Speaker, Laverne Spencer and Janelle Chipper for high jump. Nick Joseph, 100 meters and 4x100 meters relay. Mark Pumfield, 400 meters and 4x100 meters relay. Stephen Charles, 100 meters and 4x100 meters relay. Michael James, 800 meters. Jonathan Celestine, 200 meters and 4x100 meters relay. Albert Reynolds was the Sportsman of the Year, javelin. For boxing, we have Nathan Ferrari. We have Marvin Anthony Lyndon Maffrey. For swimming, Katie Kyle, the Junior Sportswoman of the Year. Janik Zephyr, 500 meters butterfly and 100 meters freestyle. The coaches at the games, Henry Bailey and Titus Elian. Boxing coach, Conrad Frederick. Mr. Speaker, during the Whitsuntide weekend, we also had a team at the Carifta Games in the Bahamas. And we know that they didn't do too well, but congratulations on representing St. Lucia well. At the inter-secondary schools, inter-primary school sports, girls, or the inter-secondary school sports, girls, St. Joseph Convent was the winner. Vieux-Fort Comprehensive placed second. Maycood Secondary placed third. Congratulations. For the boys' championship, St. Mary's College first, Vieux-Fort Comprehensive second, Angers Secondary third. The district games, which is the inter-primary championship, District 6 placed first, District 5 placed second, and District 7 placed third. Let me also, Mr. Speaker, congratulate the police cricket on becoming the regional T20 champions. Again, congratulations, gentlemen. And Mr. Speaker, as about it, permit me to thank the staff of the Department of Youth Development and Sports for their hard work and dedication as we continue to transform youth and sports development in this country to new and exciting heights and excellence. Mr. Speaker, on another note, let me inform members and the nation through you of the Dennery Carnival program. That's important to us. Opening of the activity April 29th. The activities include Keep It Fit for Carnival, May 5th, 12th and 19th. Kiddies, June 17th. Bacchanal Friday, June 22nd. Carnival Queen Show, 23rd of June. Parade of the Bands, 30th of June. And other activities, Mr. Speaker, Paint and Powder Jouvet Fete, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. Cooler Fete, and the Lime Jam. All are invited to the beautiful Dennery segment taking place on the East Coast in June. The minister will not be invited. Mr. Speaker, before I go into the meat, and I have said time is a little limited, as I listen to the former Minister of Sports and the member for Dennery North, I'm thinking that the member has become an angel. So not because, or maybe I should say because the member has so many pastors and priests praying for him that he's become an angel. In one sense, this is good, but in another sense, we must not forget some of the things that we say or we have done. If we are not apologetic to the people of St. Lucia, then we are making a mockery of the benevolence of the Holy Spirit. So, Mr. Speaker, let me remind the member what he said about the people of Dennery South. As Minister of Youth Development and Sports, when we were in government between 2006 and 2011, started the restoration of the Dennery playing field. The project was not completed. Obviously, you finding yourself in the position as minister, the young people of that constituency would have engaged you to see whether the football field would have been completed. You know, to the shame of the constituents and of the youth. You know what the gentleman told them? You know what the member at the time told the people? That would not get done. You know why? Because he would be making me, Edmund Estefan, look good. When I'm already good. I'm already looking good. I was already looking good then. You know, that was shameful. And to come here today and talking about so many little trivial matters, you forgot that? So, Mr. Speaker, I know that a lot of this thing, the things said that I will deal with during my presentation. But let me see if I can deal with some of them immediately. Mr. Speaker, and as the member made his presentation, he continually said that if they can find $1, if they can find $1, well, we will not find $1, we will find millions that were inappropriated, misappropriated. We will. And let me give you an example of something that we must find. Just one example. You know, up to a day like today, Mr. Speaker, the person chosen to run against me in Dennery South, up to a time like today, okay, and for the election had several supplies. When we're talking about supplies ordered by the NLA.
Honorable Member for Dennery North.
Mr. Speaker, I want to invoke Standing Order 35.
Honourable Member for then resolve, please.
The member is imputing improper motives by suggesting that monies at the NLA under my ministerial watch was misappropriated. I'm asking for the member to withdraw that statement.
I have not said anything. I have not even said what I have to say.
Honourable Member for then resolve. By suggesting that you will find millions, you are starting to raise some questions.
So, Mr. Speaker, I will use this example to indicate that supplies of the NLA ordered for at the time for the use or for the young people of St. Lucia went to the hands of politicians, supplies, and were being distributed in the elections campaign. Mr. Speaker, containers of supplies purchased by the NLA were all taken from the NLA down to the valley and were being distributed in the election campaign. Inappropriately.
Mr. Speaker, again, I have to invoke Standing Order 45.5. The member cannot prove what he's saying there. That is grossly inappropriate.
Yeah, what is it? It is inappropriate.
That's what I
How can the member prove and substantiate that supplies belonging to the NLA was taken to my constituency for distribution? That is a lie, and I want that withdrawn.
Inappropriate language, a lie.
He has to prove that's not true. You don't accuse
Honourable Member then resolve.
So, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member then resolve. First, Honourable Member then resolve. The member for then resolve. He said were taken to Denry. I'm just raising that point. I'll come back to the Honourable Member for then resolve. He did not say Denry enough. Specifically, he said Denry. I just want to clarify that. No. And member for then resolve, you are now making certain allegations. If you cannot convince me at this time that the items you're referring to were items of the NLA, then I would ask you to discontinue with that line.
If he cannot prove it.
So, Mr. Speaker, I know that I'm fully aware that some of my time is being taken on this matter, and I hope that you take a very strong look at this clock. So, Mr. Speaker, I have made the point. And I think I have indicated that not just $1, but several. So, Mr. Speaker, let me deal with another matter presented by the member. So, in the case of VAS in Mabuya Valley, again, calling foul, victimization. I just proved that you victimized a whole constituency, an entire constituency, then result. Okay? By denying them the playing field. But don't worry, we are patient. Don't worry, we are loving. Don't worry, we are caring. And the then refill will be delivered in due course.
If you're in labor, you can deliver.
So, Mr. Speaker, the NLA funds, which were made mention of, and the member asked, where is the funds going to? Member, you have no idea. This government of the United Workers' Party, we have actually taken a policy position at the cabinet level that funds of the NLA, okay, what happened and ministers' account being set up and all of that could never happen under this administration. Never. And not just, I mean, anybody who had any sense, anybody who understands finance, anybody who understands good governance. I mean, I was just a member of the opposition, and I just realized what was happening. I spoke about this in the campaign, because at that time, the member was thinking that information had gotten to me from the NLA. I had nobody talking to at the NLA. I just realized that whatever that is going on there, with a minister being able to dictate, you know, two other members and asking them what is it they want and so on, and then writing a check to them.
Inappropriate.
Mr. Speaker, I rise on a stand. I invoke 35(5) of the standing orders to ask the member to stop imputing improper motives by suggesting that I used to ask people what they wanted and then proceed to write checks. He has attempted to do that in this Honorable House before, where he actually said that I had a checkbook. I cautioned him at the time. He was asked to withdraw the statement, and he's going down that same road. He's imputing improper motives that are injurious to my reputation and my name, and I'm asking him to withdraw it.
Honorable Member Denry North, I understand what you're saying, but I will have to, at this present time, await the member if he crosses that line, and I will so stop him.
And that is in the record.
So, I am making the point, Mr. Speaker, although that will take most of my time, but the point has to be made.
Mr. Speaker.
The point has to be made. Observing what was taking place at the time, I realized that that could not have been right. Okay? And that is why the member always asked me to put in a proposal for competition in my constituency. I refuse. You know why I refuse? I actually went to my Youth and Sports Council and I told them, look, there might be funds available by the then minister, because he has asked me to send in a proposal. So please write a proposal so that, and take it to the minister. I don't think it was ever done. But I would never, in my capacity as district rep, because I realized that could never have been right. Okay? The member didn't ask me to write to the board. That's not what I was told. Okay? And so I realized that was wrong, and I didn't comply. So, Mr. Speaker, even from the outside, this was wrong. Looking in from the outside as a member, and then, lo and behold, getting in there, all my suspicions were correct and confirmed. Okay? That a minister's account was set up. It had millions of dollars in it. Okay? And then projects were being selected by the minister and being paid by that minister's account to contractors. That can never, in any country, in any organization, be correct. And the quicker, honorable member, you realize that this was improper, then better would your standing be with all those persons who are praying for you.
Improper action.
So that, anyway, Mr. Speaker.
You need rest.
The Appropriation Bill of 2018-2019 is solidly anchored against the platform of building economic resilience in setting the course en route for economic buoyancy to create and sustain growth in our country. Of particular focus, Mr. Speaker, is the emphasis on government's approach to alleviating poverty, government's approach in improving and building resilient industries by creating sustainable employment and re-engineering social services. Of particular focus, Mr. Speaker, is the emphasis on improving security and justice, reforming government, building capacity in renewable energy, adapting to climate change. Of particular interest and focus to this government is the government's policy direction and sustainable programs for the year ahead, and on how St. Lucia is being placed in a position to adapt, to recover, and to succeed. We know where we're going, we know where we are coming from. We are not coming from anywhere good. Our finances in this country were mismanaged. Our finances in this country went into political campaigns. The finances that belong to the state were inappropriately used, especially at the NLA. So, Mr. Speaker, things could not have been right for St. Lucia. Things could not have been right for our youth. Things could not have been right for the sportsmen and women of this country. So, Mr. Speaker, government committed to the cause of the people, we hold true to the unshakable notion that trust is the foundation of leadership. Trust is the foundation of leadership. Mr. Speaker, as a reasonable government, we have the vision and the conviction to realize and achieve the dream of building a better St. Lucia and making it one of the best places to live and to work. This is what we are aspiring to, and this is where we are going. The government is adopting a five-pronged approach as outlined by the World Bank coined MILES. Macroeconomic conditions, investment climate, labor market policies and institutions, education and skills development, social protection, Mr. Speaker, estimates from free search agencies such as the IMF, the Caribbean Development Bank, and the ECCB clearly indicates good news for St. Lucia's growth and development. That good news is the trumpet melody of a positive outlook for the St. Lucian economy. We are growing this economy. We have started. I can tell you, as far as the economy of St. Lucia is concerned, the sky is the limit. Just wait and see what is going to happen at the end of this financial year. Mr. Speaker, it echoes loudly with clarity and certainty that the economy is coming out of serious crisis levels under this government. We are making progress. And that point was clearly emphasized by the Prime Minister on page 27 of the budget address. When addressing the economy, he stated, and I quote, "Preliminary figures for 2017 indicate that the economy has started to grow again by the notable margin of 2.5%. However, I wish to repeat, it is imperative that we remove the impediments to further growth. If we do not accommodate growth through investment, it will be temporary, unreliable, and therefore unsustainable," unquote. See, there's a fundamental difference between the operations of the former government, the St. Lucia Labour Party, and this government. And what you think that fundamental difference is? It is about empowerment. The St. Lucia Labour Party has no interest in growing the economy of St. Lucia. Too many people will become, should I use the word rich? Too many people will get out of the slum if the economy is grown. Too many people will become independent. Too many people will get out of slavery and bondage. So I understand that, and I know that the St. Lucia Labour Party, when they govern, they have no interest, absolutely zero interest in growing the St. Lucian economy for the reasons that I've just mentioned. And so, Mr. Speaker, that is the mark of a government whom the people have placed confidence in, to stand firm with the courage to make tough decisions and the compassion to listen to the needs of the people. That, Mr. Speaker, is distinguishable nature of this administration, reflected through some programs by the equality of our actions and the integrity of this government. We are focused. And we are focused on investing in our people. We are focused on upgrading our physical infrastructure. And even that of all the physical infrastructures of or for the sportsmen and sportswomen of St. Lucia. Improving public sector efficiency and managing the cost of the debt. And so, Mr. Speaker, we know that the time is short, as always. So let me see if I can go through some of the development strategy and programs of the department. Mr. Speaker, this administration is clear in its recognition, in its commitment, in its focus, and its understanding that sports is a critical vehicle for building the basic fabric of our nation. We understand that. Hence, Mr. Speaker, it is our policy direction that sports must be utilized in a more strategic and structured manner. That is why we are reversing the apparent lack of cohesion in our sports infrastructure by modernizing sports in one, meaning, in purpose, and in organization. And two, by building leadership and programming capacity at all levels, at schools, at the community, and at the national associations. The conditions under which we play sports as well, Mr. Speaker, we are changing that, we're improving that. The people and organizations that sponsor and provide the resources needed to play sports. We are roping them in, we are collaborating with them, we are discussing with them, and we are going to allow them to help us empower our people. Mr. Speaker, page 40 of our Principles of Commitment, our manifesto, we emphasize the role of sports in developing healthy lifestyles and creating opportunities for rewarding careers, fostering national pride, as well as creating employment and wealth. We recognize that. So, Mr. Speaker, it is to this end that we are fashioning a strategic approach to creating and sustaining a sports industry and culture which is being developed in 2 phases. Phase 1. Phase 1, Mr. Speaker. It pertains to services and deliverables scheduled for and completed in April 2018, which are designed with the purpose, goal, and objective to identify and develop the outline for a national sports strategy, geared towards categorizing and assess existing sports venues for upgrade, as well as propose new building sports venues for the nation. We are putting on a master plan. So where is this coming from, Mr. Speaker? What do you think? By the time, I was out there hoping that one day God would send me to that department to change things. Has been my dream. And so, Mr. Speaker, even out there, I'm thinking our infrastructure is lacking. Our programming is insufficient. Our structures are not taking us to where we're supposed to go. And even now there I was thinking, if St. Lucia could utilize its resources in a more meaningful way, if St. Lucia, because of the lack of resources, could at least deal with one community per year, imagine what a government, in one government term, what can be achieved. Instead of, and it happens all the time. In my lifetime as a sportsman, I used to see it happening all the time. Government after government used to just go in, grade a few playing fields, okay? And once the rain comes, in 1 month, the field is back to its bad condition. And that could not have been right. And even the program that we met in place, Mr. Speaker, we knew that this was unsustainable. And so the thinking started. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, in this budget, the Prime Minister has placed in the village councils, towns and village councils, $100,000 each to help maintain playing field facilities. That is a government who is thinking. And that is a government who has a strategic direction. So, Mr. Speaker, this includes developing a master plan and the national sports strategy with the goals and objectives as follows. Identify and assess the conditions of the main sports and recreation venues maintained by the Department of Sports. Identify the venues and facilities throughout the nation that are right for upgrade in the next 3 to 4 years. Identify the venues and facilities that are critical for the national sports associations. Identify a master plan to develop several upgraded venues per constituency. Identify and recommend new venues that will benefit youth, after-school programs, and national wellness and community social programs. Identify or recommend venues and facilities that will benefit the nation in the industry of sports tourism. identify new building projects that will support national sports associations that currently do not exist or should be expanded to multiple venues for sports around the country, swimming pools, athletics track, etc. And as I'm on athletics track and swimming pool, Mr. Speaker, we have recognized, and we can still debate that, and we are quick and we are implementing this, that looking at St. Lucia, we need 4 tracks. Okay, we already have the George Odlum Stadium, and as quickly as we can get St. Jude back on its feet, as quickly as the youth will get back use of that facility. We have identified in Soufrière on the West Coast, Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, to place another track. And work is going to commence on this very soon, and I will talk about it a little more. We have also identified the location of the FIFA Goal project in the Mabuya Valley for another track. Very quickly, Mr. Speaker, when we got in, FIFA's policy was that they would not allow any unrelated event in their facility, the FIFA Goal project. And I had a discussion with them. I told them, look, the government is very strategic in its thinking. The government has realized on the East Coast, there's only one place that we can possibly put that track. I think I had that meeting with Mr. McIntyre, if I remember well. McIntosh. And we agreed, and he agreed, that FIFA would allow us to put that track around that goal project. They will not be building it. It will be the government's responsibility to put in the track. But we were able to convince them to leave the space as they put in the artificial turf for the field, for the goal project. And so this is one of the venues that we are going to have a track, Mr. Speaker. We are also looking at, in the north, somewhere between Castries and Grosile, Mr. Speaker, to put in another track. There will be a lot of discussion in terms of what we do with Marshall Ground and Mindo Philip Park, and whether it might be better to have another track in the Grosile area, but the discussion is ongoing. So, Mr. Speaker, phase 2. So, phase 1 was identified. Phase 2, Mr. Speaker. In this phase, it is on works to commence in April 2018 for an additional 15 months. So we have agreed on some projects, Mr. Speaker, with several projects to be designed and constructed by February to June 2019. Mr. Speaker, this includes developing 2 categories to start projects in 2018, very soon. A, shovel-ready projects, and B, study-ready projects. Let me just make a clarification as to what each is. The shovel-ready projects are defined as existing venues that merit immediate consideration for upgrade as part of the national interest, as well as to serve as model venues for the rest of the country in several categories. And study-ready projects are defined as existing venues or proposed new building venues that merit immediate and further study by the team to develop solutions and options for the government of St. Lucia so that the government can consider in a very near future, but after more due diligence, after consultations, etc. And so, Mr. Speaker, I go to the sports infrastructure categories. Mr. Speaker, the master plan of the National Sports Programming and Development Strategy will categorize sporting facilities as follows. And I realized that I would have to run through those like a sprinter. Mr. Speaker, national and international venues. For example, George Odlum Stadium, Darren Sammy and others, to be developed for major championships, training and events. These venues will also attract sports tourism opportunities. A potential national sports park that might consist of majority of the major sports, and we are looking at cul-de-sac for this. 2, sports hubs, large. For example, Dennery, VG, Soufrière, Mindo Philip Park, Marsha, Mindo Philip Park / Marsha, and other venues that hold more than one major sport that would be upgraded to provide more ability to host training sessions and competitions without maintenance and weather issues. Sports hubs, medium. We're not forgetting any constituency, not like the other government. Everybody's going to look good. We have a very caring government. We have a prime minister, who knows where we are going and who support the young people of this country. You'll find out. For example, sports hubs medium. For example, Micoud North, Grosile, Vieux-Fort, Anslary, Canris, Marigot, Soisel, and other similar venues that hold one or shared significant sports facilities supported by other smaller infrastructure elements. We will help Bexar. Community clubs. For example, Micoud South, Babono, Laclery, Jacmel, Labry, Egad, Fonasor, Bexar, and other similar venues where a mixture of sports upgraded to meet community needs for fitness, recreation, sports training, and smaller competitions. And then the last category, National Sports Academy. The government is currently working diligently to open up, by September 2018, a Center for Excellence in Sports that will be named the St. Lucia National Sports Academy and located on the existing campus of the Grosile Secondary School. And I'm sure the Minister of Education, and when the Prime Minister rebuts that, he might clarify some certain issues on this. Mr. Speaker, this secondary school will serve as the educational institution of choice for the country's top student athletes who currently or are anticipated to represent the country at under 17 national teams or on under 17 national teams or as individuals in international competitions, including but not limited to Carifta Games, Pan American Games, World Championships, World Cups, and Olympic Games. And it was raised by a presenter, how is this going to work if a student is from Library? You would be pleased to hear that there will be living accommodations at these facilities. So when we have found a talent, or in our case, what we're trying to do is to nurture our talents to get to that stage so that we can have even more talented individuals. We will house them. They will have boarding. They'll be provided with food, training, you name it. They will be supported by the government of St. Lucia. So, Mr. Speaker, as I've said, the Honorable Minister of Education, Honorable T.C. Rigobert, the Minister of Education, will give you a lot more information. Currently, Mr. Speaker, a highly experienced task force of top individuals in education, sports, and business are working to develop a model school to open in 2018, as I mentioned. And hopefully, Mr. Speaker, what this government wants to do is to establish another 2 such facilities on island in the near future. Let me go to another category, Mr. Speaker, renovation of the Dyer Mall. Mr. Speaker, the government of the United Workers' Party had the foresight to start looking at this facility to see what use we can make of it. In our sports development master plan, we have identified the Dyer Mall to transition into a private public commercial operation that would be retrofitted to house a 5,000 plus seat sports arena and theater for sports training and indoor competitions. St. Lucia needs this, including musical, theater events, and other entertainment, religious, charitable, conference, convention, trade show type events.
Honorable Member, you have 15 minutes remaining to conclude your
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the remainder of the building would be open for listing of retail, office, and restaurant and conference space. Mr. Speaker, I have a whole list of items to speak about, so I will just go through very quickly. Shovel-ready projects, mini stadium in Soufre, Denry Sports Complex, Grosile Sports Ground, Mikud North Sports Complex, Mikud South Sports Complex, Grosile Secondary School. Study-ready projects, George Odlum National Stadium, the St. Lucia Pavilion, also known as the Dyer Mall, Bocheru Sports Complex, Mindo Philip Marshall Grounds, VG Sports Complex, National Sports Park in Cul-de-Sac. And Mr. Speaker, let me just mention a few. I don't want to leave most of our youth activities untouched. And so let me mention the National Sports Programming Strategy, Mr. Speaker. The National Sports Programming Strategy is designed to complement the National Sports Infrastructure Development Strategy in achieving an all-inclusive sports development agenda. Mr. Speaker, our approach to sports leadership management at the Department of Youth Development and Sports is to develop the various sports using a tripod approach at all ends of the spectrum, at the grassroots level, at the school level, and at the high performance level. And I have encouraged all associations to re-examine their structures so that we can have tournaments on an island-wide basis for a very long period of time in the year. So at the club level, we are looking at management, and we want the clubs to recruit sufficient participants and for them to be able to provide programs that would be supported by the national lotteries authorities. At the national level, we will have, Mr. Speaker, like I just mentioned, competitions at the highest level. And the facilities for those competitions are being put together in the sports infrastructure strategy. So, Mr. Speaker, national lotteries authorities, and we have spoken a little bit about the national lotteries authorities, and only to say at this point that government, and I will repeat myself, government has taken the decision that the funds of the National Lotteries Authorities will solely be used for development and programming for youth development and sports, and not for the development of facilities and for capital projects. And so over the last 2 years, all the wastage that has taken place at the NLA has been put to a stop. All the wastage. Okay? We try our best that funds don't even go to parliamentarians. Funds for them to be having tournaments. Funds are supposed to be going to youth and sports councils. So the structure in the different communities have to be sound enough that the NLA would provide the funding for these tournaments to take place. And those tournaments would be structured. And so communities don't have to depend on parliamentarians to host tournaments. And to me, once we can achieve that, we've cured a disease. Negative 1.9 million in the red. That's a Labour Party thing. Yes. Because a lot of drains were constructed in Dennery using the NLA funds. A lot of drains. You know, you cannot make a cheerleader come and defeat a champion. So, Mr. Speaker, again, so we have I have mentioned earlier that the field maintenance program would be dealt with both by SSI and by the different district offices, town and village councils. And money has been allocated by the Prime Minister to help with that respect. On the issue of SSI, very quickly, a process will be initiated for review of the operations of SSI with a view to its unsustainable nature, its restructuring, and addressing all the ills that are inherent with that organization. Mr. Speaker, SSI is indebted. It has been indebted for a while, and it will be restructured. And I have a whole list of issues that I'm not able to go through right now. So let me just mention, Mr. Speaker, some of the youth programs of the department. The Youth Empowerment Project, and all these projects were mentioned in the previous debate. So the Youth Empowerment Project, Integrated Youth Court Diversion Programs, Youth Recidivism Reduction Program, Out-of-School Suspension Program, After-School Programs for At-Risk Youth, Summer Programs for At-Risk Youth, and we are encouraging organizations on island, as I have said before, that since the funds of the NLA will not be used for capital projects, we are encouraging the young people of this country and clubs and organizations and so on to come up with programs, to develop programs so that the NLA can fund it. Once they are developmental in nature and they meet the specifications of the NLA. After school programs, summer school programs, community support programs, sports and expressive arts. These are all programs that have been run or that will be run by the Department of Youth Development and Sport. Designs for the George V Park in the city of Castries, the Youth Volunteers Corps, the Leadership Development Program, Violence Opposition Initiative for Community Empowerment, The Voice. All these programs will continue to run as I come to some constituency matters, Mr. Speaker. Only to say that A master plan for the community of Dennery, the village of Dennery, or the constituency of Dennery South was developed a long time ago, since 2005, and year by year, except when Labour Party got back into office and we had regression for almost 5 years. But suffice it to say that we are back here and the development of Dennery South is continuing smoothly. Our roads, our agricultural and public are getting attention. Our sporting facility, or facilities, the football field and the cricket field, are getting the attention needed. And your rep is out to help my community, so you will not be discriminated against again. And we are going to go try and finish this thing very quickly so that you can get use of your playing field. The new Dennery Polyclinic has started, and you know, this is so shameful that the member for Dennery North saying that, you know, that's their project. Come on. Come on. I wonder how I was able to find the site for that project. I wonder how it was me. I wonder how it could have been possible for me to be the one to indicate that this is where I want that polyclinic to be located. I wonder how that happened. I wonder how that happened. Anybody, can anybody help me? That's true. That's true. You know anything. You don't even know. You don't even know that he cannot interfere with the monies of the NLA. You don't even know that. Yes. You don't even know that he cannot interfere with the funds of the NLA. So what do you know?
Mr. Speaker, I understand on a point of order to invoke Standing Order 35.5. The member is imputing improper motives by suggesting that I am interfering with monies belonging to the National Lotteries Authority.
Honorable Member Dennery North, past tense. Honorable Member Dennery South, withdraw, sir.
Mr. Speaker, you know, I can bring in the words of the member. Mr. Speaker, I can bring in the words.
Honorable Member, do not say, and I'm asking you to withdraw the part where you say that he does not know, he's not supposed to interfere in the NLA funds. That's the part, just that part.
Does he know?
Honorable
Mr.
Member,
Speaker,
please.
I withdraw the fact that the member does not know that he's not supposed to interfere with the funds of the NLA. So, Mr. Speaker, what does he know? Nothing. Mr. Speaker, I hope you give me back all my minutes that were taken away from me. So, Mr. Speaker, this budget is a jobs incentives budget designed to stimulate continued economic growth, sustain the pillars of the economic platform of this country, engineered, Mr. Speaker, to harness growth and to build resilience of a social, environmental, and economic nature and dimension. Mr. Speaker, here is what I mean by the acronym JOBS. J. Because the programs and forward-thinking initiatives of the government bring relief, and joy to the people. They bring relief and joy to the people. And we are just starting. Oh, our pro-growth strategy brings tremendous opportunities to the people again. To the people, and we are not going to discriminate. We are not going to say that we're going to make the people or the member for the valley to look good. I don't know if we can ever make him look good. We are B. We are building resilience at all levels of the economy to sustain economic development. Building resilience. S is for the sustainable leadership and stewardship of the ship of state. Colleagues, you are doing a wonderful job. Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you very much.
Mr. Speaker, we are on the right path. Although Denry needs... How much time do I have left, Mr. Speaker? Oh my God.
1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know that So we are on the right path. It is through service to the people whom we serve with respect, with humility, compassion, and an undeterred dedication that this government moves strategically and purposefully to unlock the people's potential to become better and to empower them, Mr. Speaker. We are on the right path, moving upward, moving forward. Mr. Speaker, we have a government with the capacity, strength, and the will to rally men and women to a common purpose. We bring people together, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we are on the right path, moving forward and upward. We are making intangible investments in the youth. I urge you, member for Dennery North, to ask for our plans and study them to understand how we program for young people. Mr. Speaker, we are a committed government, focused and committed to openness, commitment to the growth of others, empathy and awareness, ability to listen to the concerns of the people. We have foresight and we have prudent stewardship. I cannot over or understate that. We value diverse opinions. We cultivate a culture of trust. And we are not going to interfere too much except for programming and development for the youth. The lottery's money. Mr. Speaker, I give my full support to this budget and I look forward to its implementation. May the good Lord continue to bless St. Lucia and all of us. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
We'll try.
Honorable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I beg that the House be suspended for lunch until 1:30. Adjourn. The time, please.
Honorable members, the question is that this House be suspended until 1:30. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion, say aye. Aye. As many as of a contrary opinion, say no. The ayes have it, the ayes have it. House is suspended.
This is the live coverage of Day 2 of the debate on the Appropriation 2018-2019 bill. The Prime Minister has called for lunch recess and has indicated a resumption of the debate at about 1:30. So far, between yesterday and today, 9 parliamentarians have contributed to the debate, leaving a balance of 8 MPs yet to make their presentations. So far, we have heard from the MPs for Choiseul Saltibus, Grosley, Ancillary Canaries, Castries South, Soufrière Force-Jacques, Castries East, Dennery North, Dennery South, and Castries Central. We ask that you stay tuned to the National Television Network for continued coverage of the debate on the Appropriation 2018-2019 bill.